We got an announcement earlier this week that Tiger Woods will be playing in his event that he hosts, the Genesis Open right here in Riviera. And the numbers are starting to come in that people are excited. They're watching because Tiger is back, and nobody better to break that all down with us than Brandel Chamblee, the Golf Channel analyst. Reach him on Twitter at Chamblee Brandel. And we'll start right there, Brandel. When you got the word that Tiger Woods would be playing in this tournament, just your thoughts and sort of the excitement that has kind of hit golf after a big weekend in Phoenix.
Well, I thought it was great news, and especially listening to his remarks in the couple of days preceding the start of the tournament yesterday. Not only did he sound, excited to be playing, he sounded pretty confident that he would play well. Just the fact that he was emphatic about the fact that he was there to play to win. I think he was a little cagier about his prospects last year. I mean, last year he played 9 rounds on the PGA Tour, and he had a few good rounds. He made a cut at the Masters and the cut at the PGA, but overall he averaged over 75. But he sounded confident. So I thought, oh, goodness, I mean, this sort of bodes well for 2023. I mean, maybe we see him 5-6 times this year, but I think he's got a lot more game than he had last year.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I would say this too, Brandel, and just watching the different holes that I did watch yesterday for Tiger, and then so far today, he doesn't seem to have that gait in his walk where it seemed like last year you could see him laboring, and you could also see those winces, right? Those grimaces when he would go down to pick up a tee or to pick up the ball in the hole. I didn't see that over these first couple of days. And so to me, that tells me that he's looking not like old Tiger, but definitely well within what this new game looks like. What have you seen from him on the course so far as his condition?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assessment. He was definitely hobbled last year, and I remember him sort of walking over the Swilken Bridge at St. Andrews, and he looked like an old man who had a problematic right leg and foot. I watched him at the father-son, and he looked pretty hobbled there, and he looked like he was in pain. So I kind of didn't really think I would see much of him this year based upon what I saw at the father-son. But to see him walk around, I mean, he still limps, but he doesn't look like he's grimacing. And I think one of the more telling aspects to sort of underscore the comfort with which he's playing and working his way around a golf course is just the fact that he can now squat down and read his putts. He didn't do that all last year.
Right.
Last year he would just sort of, put one hand on a leg and sort of halfway bend over and look at the putts. But, he's bending down quite a bit. So, again, whatever pain he was in at the father-son, whatever swelling he was dealing with, it seems like to some extent he's got it under control this week.
We're talking with Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chamblee here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'm Kirk Morrison, filling in for Rich. And Brandel, so last week I was in Phoenix for the Waste Management Open. Had a great time being there.
You were there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was there. I was going around. I was by the the Golf Channel set for a little bit. I snuck into the green room, by the way. Some great snacks in there, by the way. And I won't tell you my hookup to get in there, by the way. But it was a fun time. It was great. And I really thought that the Phoenix Open is a great start to the season. One of those big premier events that brings so many fans into golf. And then now you have this week with the Genesis Open. And then you just think about some of the players that have now won, and just I would say the spotlight that is now put on golf, and what the PGA Tour has sort of did to uplift the tour, have uplift the players. Where have you seen it most grow in the last couple years now, where you're starting to see the tour really take center stage week in and week out?
Well, I think the level of young and accomplished talent is unique. There has certainly been some successful players early in their careers, Seve, Gene Sarazen, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods. But there hasn't been as many of them. There hasn't been this high of a concentration of young and successful players on the PGA Tour. So I think they've benefited from having watched not only the greatest player of all time, but the greatest mind in the game. And, Golf Channel came along in 1996, 1995. That's right when Tiger came along. So they've got to watch him every step of the way. So they've got a clear idea of how to train and how to work their way around a golf course. I think that's That's part of it. But as much as I've railed against LIV, I don't believe that it is capitalism at work. I think it is corruption. But I will admit that it is competition for the PGA Tour. And the competition makes everything better. So the idea of having these designated events, upwards of 20 of them, means we get to see the best players in the world go head-to-head more often. So instead of just the majors and the FedEx Cup, we get to see them, another dozen times. And I think that's great. John Rahm won the first one in Hawaii, and Scotty Scheffler won last week in Phoenix. So that's the idea. I don't know that the PGA Tour could have dreamed of two better scenarios to get this thing started. And as we sit here, Tiger Woods is playing well, but on the top of this leaderboard, you've got Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Justin Thomas. So we're set up for another phenomenal weekend here on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, you're talking about an all-star list of players who are still playing at their best golf right now. And you mentioned a little bit about LIV, and I was thinking about it the other day and kind of reading some reports of the guys who did go over to the LIV Tour. And at some point, I always say, when you leave home and you take a look back and you realize, like, home is actually okay. Home is actually seems to be a lot more fun now that you've left, and you're starting to see the increase in the fan support and the social media. And this is what happens to sometimes, I think, with players in other sports. They go for greener pastures, but then you also fall into this abyss of nobody's watching and you kind of get forgotten about. Do you think there's possibly some guys who would love to come back to the tour, especially the way that it's risen in growth over the last couple seasons?
I've heard some people say, players have buyer's remorse.
Right.
I would call it seller's remorse. They've sold their soul to the highest bidder. And in spite of the despicable source of the money for LIV, the fact is that they're playing in places that are, thousands and thousands of miles away from their homes. The golf courses are not in as good a shape as PGA Tour courses. There's not likely anything equivalent to the fitness trailers and the repair trucks that follow around the PGA Tour. There's certainly not the attention. I've watched some LIV golf just because I wanted to inform myself and get a sense of what it was, if there was any attraction, any sellable quality to it. And, it's like they're playing golf in a void for the most part. They're trying to manufacture and hype up interest where there just flat isn't any. You can see pictures of Phil Mickelson out playing the 18th hole, and there's nobody watching. Nobody. So, yeah, I think, there's a lot of them are like, what have I done? And how much money do you need? There's all kinds of documented evidence and studies done that, what somebody has enough money to live comfortably. In other words, have a roof over their head, food on the table, and be able to have, reasonable health care. No amount of money is going to make them any happier. And here these tour players were, with all of the success that they were having on the PGA Tour, all of the sponsors that wanted to do business with them, all of the comforts of traveling on their private jets to the best courses in the U.S. under the best conditions, under the best weather conditions, under the best scenarios. And now they've uprooted all of that. And what? Just for a little bit more money? And in the final analysis, once you take away the sponsorship dollars that they have foregone, the fact that the PGA Tour is now elevated, I'm not sure they've even made the decision for a whole lot more money.
Yeah. Whew, that's a lot there. Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chamblee joining us here. And I think you go from like the LIV and the PGA Tour and sort of that controversy, but I think an even bigger controversy right now in terms of golf, and it's more for the sneakerheads out there, Brandel. It's more for the people who like to have the right type of footwear on the golf course. And I'm saying that because we just talked about Tiger Woods, and it seems to be Tiger Woods is a Nike athlete, but then he's wearing FootJoy shoes, and he has to find the right shoes that prepare him for a lengthy round. And so there's sort of this kind of back and forth of what's the proper shoe for Tiger Woods, but more importantly, what's the proper shoe for you? I know I prefer comfort over, I guess, luxury or over stylistic, but how does that kind of play out for Tiger as he shows everybody, I know I'm a Nike guy, but I can't wear the Nike shoe?
Yeah, look, I don't know what demands he needs in a shoe. I don't know what it was specifically about the Nike shoe that didn't support or give him the support he needed in his right foot in transition. I don't know exactly what it was, but whatever it was, he's finding it in another pair of shoes as opposed to the Nike shoes. I'm sure it's upsetting to the Nike people.
Right.
I'm sure it's of great comfort to FootJoy. But anymore, since I'm not on the PGA Tour, I guess I could call these people and ask for some free shoes, but I'm quite happy to go to the PGA Tour Superstore and buy the most comfortable golf shoes I can find. My wife is also she's a bit of a commentator in the fashion world, so we get a lot of shoes sent to us that I look at, and there's a lot of cool stuff out there. But Tiger, I'm sure it's just the mere fact that he's looking for more support as he pushes off with his right foot in his golf swing.
Brandel, I wear a size 12.5, 13. So if you want to slide a couple of those pair my way, I will gladly take them off your hands. Golf Channel analyst.
I'm an 8.5, 9. So
Okay.
I'm afraid we're not getting many of those big feet shoes at our house.
Hey, yeah, let him know. But what you got, something, Brock?
Hey, Brandel, quick question about Max Homa, who's at 7 under right now. How has he been able to really elevate his game in the last few years, especially, I guess you could say, quote, at the old age of 32?
Look, first of all, he's a really hard worker, which doesn't necessarily single him out amongst the PGA Tour. I mean, by the time you get to the Tour, you find them, the guys who have the best attitudes and persevere the most. But one thing, I think he's got a real great sense of, spatial awareness, how to move the club on the right plane. Not everybody's blessed with that, and he's got a body and a facility that allows him to do that. He generates quite a bit of club head speed, in spite of the fact that he swings it looks graceful and elegant, but there's a lot of violence going on there. But he's managed to work on all aspects of his game such that he doesn't have a weakness. As a matter of fact, there are only 5 other players on the PGA Tour that have more complete games, and I'm talking about off the tee, into the green, around the greens, and on the green. So the 4 major aspects of the PGA Tour. There's only 5 other players that have more complete games than him. That's Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Sungjae Im, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Rory McIlroy. And all of those players had pretty big sneaking up on monster years last year. They all won. In the case of Rory, he won 3 times, and then, of course, he's followed up with a couple wins this year. Xander Schauffele, he won 3 times as well. Patrick Cantlay twice. Sungjae Im won once, but he finished second 3 times. And Homa won twice last year and already won twice this year. So it's just a matter of him not having any weaknesses. Everybody, for the most part, almost everybody fights some demon in the game. It's rare when someone comes along and doesn't have a weakness. And right now in the PGA, 5, 6 players out there, and he's one of them.
Yeah, he's one of the young, exciting players. But I think the young, exciting player you're probably most happy to see isn't on the golf course. He's at the University of Texas, your alma mater. Were you one of the dignitaries that helped the visit for Arch Manning, as he is now the quarterback, possibly of the future at the University of Texas? Has the Brandel Chamblee tickets arrived yet for the upcoming Longhorn season?
No, I'm afraid I didn't get that call to recruit, but I'm a big fan of the Mannings, all of them. Going back, look, I grew up in Irving, Texas, so it was a great era for the Cowboys when I grew up. I mean, that's how old I am, but I'm old enough to remember Archie Manning as a quarterback for New Orleans, and lucky enough to have been at several functions where he got up to speak. So he wasn't just a great athlete and a great quarterback. He was all class. He really was, just a man of great character, and he's done a hell of a job of raising his kids. And now, I think we're all fortunate to get to watch them play and to have them as leaders in the sport. And in particular, I think UT is very fortunate to have the Manning family sort of associated with the Longhorns.
Brandel, before I get you out of here, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Who's your 2023 golfer of the year?
I think it's going to be Rory. I think Rory, for the first time in his career, is playing with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's always been an emotional player, but never one to look for slights here or there. But I think that's a characteristic of a lot of great athletes, is that they found a way with a play with a chip on their shoulder. A certain, Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, just to name two, but I could name 50. And I think the fact that Liv has come along, and Rory is the elder statesman in the game, and the most prominent face, sort of trying to divine out the difference between Liv and the PGA Tour. I think he's taken a real leadership role, and it hasn't been a detriment to his game. So I'm going to say Rory.
All good. I like it. And Rory's definitely outspoken about standing up for the PGA Tour. We've definitely seen that. Hey, Brandel, appreciate the time, my man. Always great to catch up with you.
You bet. Thank you for having me on. Talk to you later.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.